health, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. Right now, how do you feel in your body? Can you say that you are healthy? Probably you are more aware of staying healthy now that we've all gone through the COVID pandemic. Health cannot be taken as it is something everyone has, but rather it is a desired state of being where you don't suffer from pain and dysfunction in your body and mind. All over the world, people spend a lot of money to stay healthy or recover from an illness, while some people have to endure risky work environments just to make money for themselves and their families. Especially in the textile factories, many young women and children work in conditions like heat and dust, no breaks, and they are being exposed to many chemicals this industry is using. In this lesson, we will walk through a factory and see how they work and how it affects their health. Let's take a step into a textile factory in Asia. You will be surprised to see the working conditions, especially if the factory is not a modern, well-lit, ventilated and safe one, but rather the opposite. These factories are the so-called sweatshops or sweat factories, where conditions are very poor and workers could be employed illegally. Mining and being a soldier are considered to be risky jobs, and you probably wouldn't think that working with textiles is dangerous. But the truth is that this industry has a bad reputation for harming its workers and causing serious health issues all over the world. Normally, in healthy workplaces, health and safety regulations are important, like using protective clothing, masks, gloves, having breaks, and access to first aid and healthcare. Some companies even offer insurance for their workers, but in unfair garment factories, workers do not get these at all. A study showed that among 200 women garment workers in Bangladesh, the major health problems were back pain, eye strain, pruritus, itching, malnutrition, not eating properly, respiratory problems, gastric pain, fatigue, fever, abdomen pain, common cold, and helminthiasis, parasites. Women constitute more than 80% of the workers. Let's start with the chemicals used in these factories. They are used for different purposes, like to make the textiles wrinkle-free, soften them, or prevent them from shrinking. Chemicals are also used to achieve a flame-retardant effect for waterproofness, stain resistance, or to dye the textiles with. Some of these, when workers come into a close contact with them, have a very damaging effect on the human body. The heavy metal content of dyes may disrupt the nervous system. Wrinkle-resistant clothes have been treated with formaldehyde, the worst type of chemical, since it not only irritates the skin, but it also has a role in developing certain kinds of cancer. Exposure to these chemicals may cause skin irritations, allergic reactions, asthma, but also there is a risk of developing cancer or reproductive and developmental diseases. And to make things worse, many factories let the contaminated wastewater from production into the living waters, which affects the whole community living nearby. A concrete example: in Savar, Bangladesh, because of the wastewater, the river turned black, and since people didn't have another option for drinking, it caused fever and skin irritations on the hands and faces of people. Would you drink this? The application of some of these chemicals is restricted by law, but not all are regulated. Those who are working with the treated clothes are in danger, and the customers wearing the clothes are also surprisingly affected by the chemicals. So, I would wash them after purchase. Fortunately, there are organizations globally, like Greenpeace, who initiate the using of less chemicals. In 2012, they ran a project for analyzing chemicals in clothes from different brands, and the result was that they found high levels of toxins in the observed garments. They also launched the Detox My Fashion campaign in 2013, in which they hold companies responsible for the releasing of these toxins into nature and ask them to drop their practices. If I tell you that is a big issue, you might say it isn't. But there is something to think about. When you work with textiles, tiny particles fall out of them. And when you spend 10 to 12 hours in a not well ventilated room, you cannot escape them ending in your lungs. It might just cause difficulty in breathing and tightness in the chest, which can be reversible. But if you work there for long years, you may develop byssinosis, also known as brown lung disease, and this is permanent. The respiratory dysfunction may make people incapable of doing their job normally. In particular, cotton dust is additionally hazardous because of the pesticides, and also the bacteria and fungi that remain in the cotton even after harvesting and processing. Dust can also come out of sandblasting, a technique to make jeans look worn out. To achieve this washed out effect, workers remove the paint from the fabric with an air compressor that contains rubbing particles. It is actually so hazardous to health that it is now forbidden to use. If these silica particles are inhaled, they can cause serious respiratory problems. But intense and long-term exposure may even result fatal diseases like silicosis, sand dust accumulating in lungs, or lung cancer. Sandblasters actually run the risk of dying within months or years of starting the work. See the comparison between a healthy and a silicosis-affected lung. Dry ice blasting is another way to make jeans look worn out. This process might replace the traditional sandblasting, since it won't cause silicosis. But it has its own dangers. It has to be done with protection. Noise risks. Noise can be an issue coming from the nearly non-stop operated machines. The exposure to loud noise might result in irreversible hearing damage or even hearing loss. Noise is one of the most common health problems in the textile industry, and problems can be difficult to detect because the effects build up gradually over time. For example, a case study was carried out with a 50-year-old male textile worker who suffers from hearing loss caused by loud machines in the textile factory. He was working over 30 years as a dyer. First, he noticed hearing loss at the age of 37. When he went to the hospital for a checkup, he found that the hearing in both ears was damaged with over 50%. He continued to work even though he kept losing his hearing more. Now, he can't even work as he doesn't have the money to buy hearing aid. And it's only one case of the many unfortunate people involved in the textile industry. Heat and humidity of air. Having to endure the heat, together with having no proper ventilation, can cause headaches and fainting. The reason why humidity is needed at textile factories is that the textiles remain thicker, stronger, and more elastic. Also, some countries have humid climates and use no air conditioning for the workplace. And for ironing the clothes, often steam is used, and those people constantly ironing textiles may feel dizzy, have low energy, and lethargy. High humidity can cause hyperthermia, having an abnormally high body temperature, as of the body's inability to deal with the hot environment. Other hazards. Biological hazards can be bacteria, fungi, other living organisms like parasites, and even rats, cockroaches, etc. Psychosocial hazards can be working with many people in the same room and sometimes also living with them after work. It can be quite stressful to endure so many people non-stop without having any me time. And not to mention the stressful conditions, being hurried, yelled at, physical abuse, and also sexual harassment takes place daily in the life of textile workers. Women are often forced to abort pregnancies to keep their jobs. One survey showed that 8 in 10 said they had experienced or witnessed sexual harassment and violence at work. Ergonomic issues. Repetitive tasks done for long working hours without breaks can lead to neck pain, lower back pain, eye strain, etc. Malnutrition is caused by not having enough and proper food for a longer period of time. Bangladesh suffers some of the highest rates of malnutrition in the world, from iodine deficiency disorders to anemia. Poorly nourished women often give birth to underweight children, creating an intergenerational cycle of malnutrition and unfulfilled potential. But just because this study has been made in Bangladesh, we do not have the reason to think that it is the only country where it is happening. After you've seen some diseases that occupational hazards can cause, let's look back on the lesson. Have you known of all these diseases that workers can develop just by doing their job? Could you imagine yourself working in a garment factory where you are surrounded by such dangers? Unfortunately, for so many people who do these jobs, it's the only thing they can do in their part of the world to earn their bread and provide for their families. Would you change something about the fashion value chain if you could? Can you think of ways we as individuals and as society can help the people who make our clothes and get sick as a result? Do you consider it acceptable that so many people suffer in this industry? Do you think that if more and more people who are consumers know about these problems and cases, something will change about it? Would you be willing to talk to others about it? What would be a sentence or a few sentences how we would summarize this worldwide issue? Some possible answers to what can be done to help improve the global situation. Educating children to read and write worldwide. Educating young people for mechanical jobs and engineering. Help families with low income through tuition fees for their kids. Promote healthy, nutritious eating with food aid donations. As consumers, we can opt for transparent fashion brands. Choose ethically and environmentally friendly produced fabrics. Go for naturally or ecologically dyed textiles. Swap clothes with friends. Buy at second-hand shops. Mend, repair, and remake our clothes. Try making our own clothes. I hope you can see the garment workers' situation in the developing world better now, and also that the changing of it is not impossible, and we can also support and promote it.